2016, that is. Many people forget that when this game was first announced, there was a lot of doom and gloom around it. Originally announced in 2014, many people were quick to point out that the art style and lighting bore resemblance to the much maligned Doom 3. At least at the time it was maligned. There was a cautious optimism at best and an outright rejection of the concept of a Doom reboot at worst. This only grew following the 2015 E3 gameplay reveal, which, while it had cool spectacle, was criticized heavily for looking too slow. The red flags seen in this trailer were, to them, affirmed during the beta test release. This showed the multiplayer, which many people at the time compared to something like Halo 5. Now, it was also refusing to send out review copies, so hopes for this reboot were low. But then it released, and shockingly, was near universally praised. So the question becomes, what did it do so well, and why is Doom 2016 a successful reboot? I think it comes down to 3 core principles, which I'll discuss now. The first core principle, and most important I would argue, to Doom 2016's success, was its faithful adaptation and evolution of the classic gameplay loop. id Software looked to classic Doom for inspiration, observing their push-forward style of gameplay, in which focus was put on allowing players to maintain continual forward momentum and punishing them for slowing down.
And that's really interesting because push-forward combat was everything to us. Like, we had a rule. You hold still. If you stand in place, you're dead. You know.
As part of this, they maintained the Doomslayer's full weapon suite from the classic era, as well as bringing back classic and faithful recreations of the demon roster. However, they didn't remain stringent to these returning elements, and instead sought to evolve, rework, and add to their individual formulas. The Slayer is given additional mobility tools in a ledge grab and double jump, allowing for full terrain control of the environment, which benefits him in the game's closed arena map design. New weapons are added into the Slayer's roster to fulfill open gameplay niches. Every weapon is also given several modifications that can be earned through exploration. These expand their use cases in the late game, as well as increasing their general power. Demons have been evolved out of the forward operating mindset of,
I'm killing you. I'm killing you. My programming is just get that fucking guy right now.
with different demons reacting differently to the player. The best example of this to me is the Summoner, a successor to the Archvile who purposely evades the player in order to summon more demons and prolong the fight. This creates a cat and mouse dynamic to her presence. All of this culminates into a new dynamic that creative director Hugo Martin referred to as the Doom Dance, and later the Combat Puzzle.
Aesthetic principles and formulas that sometimes run in opposition of what's good for the game. The game wins. You know, fun wins, always. Fun first. That was always our mantra. So, probably some of my favorites with that in mind would be probably the Pinky. I love that he's this freight train. There are many times when I'm in like the last level of the game or any level of the game, and you're doing the dance and you're feeling like a rock star and you're kicking major ass, and he just plows you from the side, just like, you're like, holy shit, you know? And I love how simple he is, and it speaks to that simplicity, that Apple-like simplicity of just swing around behind and shoot him in the part that looks weak. You know, I love that about him. I think he perfectly complements the dance. You know, and that's what it is. Like as you play through the game, you're playing chess, the combat puzzle that you have to solve, and your tools and the amount of chess pieces on the board increase, and the size of the chessboard and the type of chessboard increases as you progress through the game. So he was a wonderful addition to the combat puzzle, I thought, when he came in.
That can be solved through the player's maximum use of their gameplay knowledge, mechanics, and how they function within the tools and environment at their disposal. Further aiding in both the combat puzzle and forward momentum style is the addition of glory kills. These restore health as a reward for players laying damage into demons at close range, and then executing them with a melee attack. In conjunction with the reworked chainsaw that acts as both a panic button and a way to restore ammunition, these then discourage scavenging mid-combat and thus keep the fight going. I would say it's inarguable that getting the combat right was the most paramount principle of Doom 2016's success as a reboot. Embracing the feel of the classic era, but modernizing and refining its flow was key to capturing both longtime fans as well as newcomers. Secondarily, another core principle was Doom 2016's redefinition of the style of Doom games. In terms of an adaptable art style, the classic era of Doom games were lacking.
Wow, Doom guy was what the fuck is this?
The general sentiment was that Doom 3 was too great of a departure gameplay-wise, but that its visuals were a highlight of the game. According to Marty Stratton, Doom 3 influenced the style of 2016, but it had to complement a more traditional and fast-paced gameplay style.
Interesting how, like, when people talk about this Doom, they go like, oh, it's just like Doom 1 and 2, right? But like, in terms of environments and structure and stuff, it's actually got a lot of similarities with Doom 3.
Yeah, I mean, like the UAC, the kind of heavy industrial feel. We do reference, probably more from a gameplay feel perspective, we reference Doom 1 and Doom 2, you know? Again, the movement, the no reloading, the no taking cover. Those are all kind of fundamental elements of Doom 1 and Doom 2. Doom 3 did a lot to develop UAC as kind of that evil corporation. It had a weighty oppressiveness to it in an interesting way.
Reworks were created to maintain the gritty and oppressive atmosphere, but inject more personality and color into it, with a huge amount of focus given to reworking the demons to all have unique visual identities, while also remaining faithful to their original design.
A lot of weight in those decisions of what this character looks like, and does he really feel like the original Doom, or does he feel like some cool iteration of it? Is he something new? You know, and so a lot of discussions back and forth, and certainly I wasn't involved in a number of those. It was primarily Hugo and the concept team and Marty, but I think they did a fantastic job. And you know, the Pinky was an interesting one because I was involved in some of the animation stuff and things that were kind of hitting Snapmap. That is a hard character to make look right and to animate properly because he's proportionally not supposed to move very well. If you actually lined him up, he would not go very well.
On top of this, however, was a focus on horror and alien body architecture that allowed the demons to meet their pop cultural expectations while still subverting them. Similar to this, composer Mick Gordon approached the soundtrack with the goal of maintaining the upfront and breakneck metal appeal of classic Doom's OST, while also reinventing it outside of the norms of rock and metal and into something new and unique that would motivate the player's forward momentum. Notably, he was actually given instructions to avoid using real guitars to avoid too much of a corny metal feel. In response to this, well, they did end up using some guitars, they instead would often simulate guitar sounds through synths or samples. Famously, the menu track Hellwalker sampled a chainsaw for its main backing.
It's time to do like a new theme for Doom, basically a new menu theme, yeah? Here's a little bit of it. It's a song that just slowly builds up on the main menu. It's about 5 minutes long, it's quite long and kind of slow and aggressive and building and that sort of thing, right? And the inspiration for that riff actually came from this iconic weapon from Doom, the chainsaw. I actually got a whole bunch of chainsaw recordings and I mixed them with different synthesizer sounds to create that sort of gnarly sound that you hear. Chainsaw.
This redefinition of what a Doom game looks and sounds like was instrumental in its success as a reboot, as it provided a more unique and appealing look for modern audiences, as well as one that was familiar to old players so that they would still feel welcome to the new entries. Finally, I think the third core principle of Doom 2016's success was how it created narrative engagement within a minimized plot. The team at id Software wanted to acknowledge that you're likely not playing a Doom game for the plot. As such, they made a point of having the Slayer dismiss the plot during the intro by violently ignoring Hayden's demands. However, Marty Stratton told GamesBeat, "We tried very early on to make that statement to players. This is going to be a little absurd, you're there to kill demons, but if you want to find out more about this place, we'll give it to you." In this comes an interesting aspect of Doom 2016's narrative. If you're interested, the opening can be viewed as Doomslayer defying Hayden's dismissive corporate talk, and if not, It serves as an open ticket to ignore the narrative. This attitude given to the Slayer feeds into the heavier focus of making you feel like a badass. Hugo Martin cited inspiration in RoboCop for this decision, and this translated into set pieces like the Sarcophagus and Slayer Testament, both of which accentuated player response to combat by empowering them into the "I'm an unstoppable badass" mentality. Much of this side of the narrative fell to the animations, giving Slayer his personality through rare moments of camera work and hand animation. Hugo compared these to the T-800 of Terminator. This can be seen in both the Slayer's no bullshit attitude and his rare moments of empathy, like his glance at the dead body, as Hayden suggests mining Argent was worth it, and in the brief pause before he backs up the Vega AI. These show that although the Slayer's an elemental of death, he still has humanity. The player picks up on this, and can further relate to him and his general mentality. This direction creates an engaging narrative that still hooks players whether or not they follow it or reject it, as well as providing a complementing tone to the gameplay loop. As such, I believe that the creation of a narrative engagement was part of Doom 2016's success as a reboot. To conclude, the three core principles that, in my opinion, made Doom 2016 a successful reboot were A gameplay loop that serves as an evolution to that of the classic era, B, the project defined the art style of a modern Doom game, artistically bridging the gap between Doom 3 and the original trilogy, and C, it introduced a proper narrative, some character development, and a sense of mythos to the world of Doom, all without it being overbearing. And how do we know all this made it successful? Well, for one, it sold amazingly, and it spawned 2 sequels, technically a prequel. But I'd say the greater point to this is that its 2 sequels aren't just copy-pastes of it, but further build off of its mechanics, which to me is an indication that they set an amazing baseline with Doom 2016. Hugo Martin was recently quoted as saying, "Eternal was like piloting an F-22 fighter jet, but Dark Ages is like driving an M1 Abrams tank." Which makes you wonder, what would you compare Doom 2016 to? Well, to me, it's like playing Doom.